Hello friends, welcome back to Behind Thai Story. Fellow travelers, friends dreaming of retiring in Thailand. Let me take you to a hotel balcony in Bangkok on a humid, sleepless night. Joshua, a 50-year-old businessman from the UK, sits alone, staring at the skyline. Neon lights reflect off his half-empty glass of whiskey. The room behind him is in chaos, papers scattered, a suitcase half-packed, his phone buzzing with unanswered calls. But what's missing from this picture is the young woman who once promised him forever. Her name was Tontawan. Thailand is a land of beauty, opportunity, and warmth. But behind the glowing beaches of Phuket, the glittering nightlife of Pattaya, and the cultural serenity of Chiang Mai are traps. Traps that prey on loneliness, midlife vulnerability, and the hunger for love. Stay with me, because what I'm about to share could save you, or someone you care about, from the same nightmare. And before we dive deeper, don't forget to hit subscribe and tap the bell. Trust me, this story could be the reality check that saves your future. Joshua's journey begins not in Thailand, but back home. A man at a crossroads, a father still trying to find his place in the world after turning 50. Lonely, hopeful, and searching for meaning. He came to Thailand for business and family, but fate had something far more dangerous waiting for him. Because when he met Tontawan, his son's friend, he thought he had found love. In reality, he had just walked straight into a trap. Before Thailand's golden sunsets and busy night markets, Joshua's life was painted in gray. He was 50 years old. A man who had once been respected in his small town in the UK. A successful mid-level manager in a logistics company, a provider for his family, a husband who thought his marriage would last a lifetime. For decades, Joshua lived by routine. Wake up before dawn, commute through traffic, grind through meetings, return home late, and repeat. But somewhere along the way, life unraveled. His wife, his college sweetheart, grew distant. Years of arguments and disappointments hardened into silence. By the time their only son left for university, the marriage was little more than two strangers under the same roof. Divorce papers followed soon after, splitting assets but leaving Joshua with something far heavier: loneliness. 50 years old, divorced, his career stalled. He looked in the mirror and saw a man past his prime. Younger colleagues were taking promotions he once dreamed of. At night, he scrolled through Facebook, watching old friends share photos of family vacations, new marriages, and smiling grandchildren. Meanwhile, his flat felt empty. His phone rarely rang. That's when Thailand started whispering to him. It began with his son, who had chosen to study international business at a university in Bangkok. His son's messages were full of life, stories of Thai food, motorbike rides through the city, weekends on the islands. "Dad, you should visit sometime. It's different here, warmer, freer." Then came business contacts. A colleague mentioned the rising opportunities in Southeast Asia. Cheaper costs, booming markets, chances to invest in property, restaurants, logistics hubs. "Thailand's where the smart money is going," they told him. For Joshua, Thailand represented more than just opportunity. It was escape. A chance to wipe the slate clean, to step out of the shadow of divorce and failure, to become someone new. But beneath that excitement lay something raw, the need to feel alive again. The truth is, Joshua wasn't just chasing profit or visiting his son. He was chasing the feeling of being wanted. After years of rejection and invisibility, he longed for someone to see him, not as a washed-up middle-aged man, but as a man worth loving. That hunger, friends, is what makes so many men vulnerable. It isn't just about money. It's about the ache of emptiness, the desire to prove that life still holds passion, that love can bloom even at 50. So Joshua packed his bags. He told his friends he was heading to Thailand for business opportunities and to visit his son. But deep inside, he was chasing something harder to admit: hope. Hope that this move would revive him. Hope that Thailand's promise of warmth wasn't just about weather, it was about a second chance at life. When his plane touched down in Bangkok, he didn't just arrive in another country. He stepped into a new chapter, one that promised beauty but hid danger in every corner. Joshua had no idea that the very thing he was searching for, connection, affection, renewal, was exactly what would lead him into the arms of Tontawan. And friends, she would become the most beautiful and most dangerous mistake of his life. The first thing Joshua noticed when he stepped out of Suvarnabhumi Airport wasn't the heat, it was the smell. Bangkok greeted him with a cocktail of sensations: exhaust fumes from taxis, sizzling street food carts, the sweet perfume of tropical flowers hanging heavy in the night air. For a man who had lived half his life in damp English weather, it felt like stepping onto another planet. His son met him at the arrivals hall, grinning, energized. "Welcome to Thailand, Dad," he said, as if unveiling a secret. Joshua's heart swelled. Here was his boy, thriving, adapting, fluent in this new life. For the first time in years, Joshua felt proud. The taxi ride into the city was an explosion of colors. Neon signs in Thai script flashing past, motorbikes weaving recklessly through traffic, golden temples glowing against the skyline. The chaos thrilled him. This wasn't the gray monotony of home. This was life buzzing, unstoppable, alive. The next weeks were a blur of discovery. Joshua tasted spicy tom yum soup so fiery it made him sweat, laughed over skewers of grilled chicken from a street vendor, and wandered through night markets where stalls sold everything from fake designer watches to fresh mango sticky rice. Tuk-tuk drivers shouted offers. Buddhist monks in saffron robes walked silently past. It was a land of contradictions, sacred and sinful, chaotic and serene. In Chiang Mai, he found peace in temples where incense curled toward golden Buddha statues. In Pattaya, he witnessed the glittering nightlife, the kind of neon-lit bars he told himself he'd avoid, but secretly found both intimidating and tempting. In Phuket, he walked barefoot on soft white sands, the ocean stretching endlessly under a fiery sunset. Thailand was intoxicating. And Joshua was hooked. It wasn't just the country, though. It was the people. Everywhere he went, he was greeted with smiles. The famous Thai Sanak, a joy in living that made every interaction feel light. Shopkeepers called him Kun, tuk-tuk drivers joked with him, even strangers seemed curious about his life. In Thailand, Joshua wasn't invisible. He was noticed. He also met other expats, men his age, some younger, some older. Over beers in Bangkok bars, they swapped stories: retirees who had left everything behind, digital nomads running businesses from laptops, divorcees starting over. Many bragged about their Thai girlfriends, young, beautiful, devoted. "Thailand is paradise, mate," one man told him, raising a glass. "You just have to be careful, it's not always what it seems." Joshua smiled politely, but he didn't fully understand. Not yet. Because at this stage, Thailand was still a dream. The heat, the freedom, the constant hum of life, it revived him. He walked lighter, laughed louder, slept deeper than he had in years. The loneliness of his empty flat back in the UK felt like a bad dream compared to the vibrant pulse of this country. But, friends, Thailand's beauty hides dangerous traps. Joshua saw the signs, though he didn't know how to read them. Young women smiling too brightly at older foreigners. Bar streets where love was for sale. Men whispering warnings about scams. He noticed, but brushed it off. He thought he was smarter, more cautious. What he didn't realize was that the real danger doesn't always come in the obvious places. It doesn't always wear heavy makeup and call you darling after 2 drinks. Sometimes, it comes in the form of respectability. A polite smile. A girl introduced as a friend of the family. Joshua had no idea that his son's friend, the sweet and seemingly innocent Tontawan, would be the one to unravel him completely. It happened on a quiet Sunday afternoon in Bangkok. Joshua's son had invited a few classmates over to work on a group project at his apartment near the university. The atmosphere was casual, laptops open, papers scattered across the coffee table, the sound of traffic drifting in through the balcony doors. Joshua had promised to stay out of the way, just a father happy to see his son thriving. That's when she walked in. Tontawan. She was 22. Slim, with dark, flowing hair that framed a delicate face. Her eyes carried a calm intelligence, the kind that made her seem older than her years. She wore a simple blouse and jeans, nothing flashy, nothing provocative. She looked like the kind of girl every parent would want their child to be friends with, educated, polite, focused on her studies. Joshua remembered the moment vividly. She bowed slightly, offering the traditional Thai greeting, "Why," with her hands pressed together. "Sawadee ka, uncle," she said softly, her voice respectful. Uncle. That word warmed him. Respectful. Kind. Not flirtatious. Not forward. In that moment, Tontawan felt like the opposite of every stereotype he had heard about Thai women and expats. Over the next few visits, Joshua found himself noticing her more. The way she laughed at his son's jokes. The way she carefully explained her ideas during group work. She carried herself with grace, never too loud, never too pushy. When she spoke to Joshua, she listened attentively, asking about his life, his business, even about England. And here's the dangerous thing, friends. Joshua felt seen. At 50, he had grown used to being overlooked, by women his age, by colleagues who no longer respected his seniority. But Tontawan looked at him as if he mattered, as if his stories had weight. That was the first hook. One evening, after his son and the other students had finished studying, Joshua offered to order dinner for everyone. While the others debated pizza versus Thai food, Tontawan leaned closer to him and said, "Uncle, you should try som tum from the street stall nearby. It's the best in this area." He laughed, surprised by her confidence. "All right then, som tum it is." They ate together, sharing papaya salad and fried chicken. Joshua noticed how she carefully balanced flavors, laughing when the chili made him sweat. It was innocent, friendly, but something stirred in him, a spark he hadn't felt in years. At first, Joshua fought it. She was young. Too young. His son's friend. Off-limits in every way. He told himself it was just admiration, nothing more. But the more they met, the more he looked forward to her presence. Then came the moment that tipped the balance. One evening, his son had to leave suddenly to meet another group member, leaving Joshua and Tontawan alone at the apartment. The air was heavy with Bangkok's humidity, the sound of rain tapping against the windows. Tontawan sat with him, asking about his business, about why he had come to Thailand. Joshua found himself opening up in ways he hadn't expected. He told her about his divorce, about the loneliness back in the UK, about how he hoped this new chapter would give him meaning. Most people would nod politely. But Tontawan's eyes softened. "Uncle," she said quietly, "you are very strong. Not everyone can start again after so much pain. I think you deserve happiness." Those words pierced him deeper than any flirtation could. She wasn't just pretty. She was kind. Empathetic. Or so he believed. From that moment, the boundaries blurred. Joshua began finding excuses to see her, offering to drive her and his son to campus, inviting the group for dinner more often. And slowly, the dynamic shifted. She stopped calling him uncle. She started calling him Joshua. Friends, this is how it happens. Not with a seductive dance in a neon bar. Not with promises whispered by a stranger. It happens in daylight, in living rooms, with girls who seem respectable, safe, trustworthy. Joshua's son noticed before he did. He pulled his father aside one evening. "Dad, don't tell me you're interested in Tontawan. She's my age. She's my friend. And I don't trust her." Joshua brushed it off. "You're imagining things. She's just kind." But deep inside, he knew his son was right to worry. Still, the feeling was too intoxicating to resist. Because for the first time in years, Joshua felt young again. Alive again. Desired again. And that's how the trap was set. He didn't know it yet, but falling for Tontawan wasn't the beginning of love, it was the beginning of his downfall. Remember this, scammers don't rush. They weave. And Tontawan wove her story around Joshua with thread so fine, he didn't even notice the net tightening around him. At first, it was small gestures. A polite message thanking him for helping with the project. A casual smile when he drove them to class. Then a text one evening, "Are you free, Joshua? I just wanted to ask your advice about something important." Joshua's heart skipped. Advice. She valued his opinion. He typed back too quickly, "Of course. Anytime." That night, they sat in a quiet cafe near campus. The air smelled of coffee and warm bread, students hunched over laptops around them. Tontawan leaned forward, her voice soft. "My family, they're struggling back home in Chiang Rai. My father is sick, and I feel guilty I cannot help enough. Sometimes I wonder if I should quit university and work instead." Joshua's chest tightened. She wasn't just beautiful, she was burdened, selfless, sacrificing. He reached across the table, his voice gentle. Don't even think about giving up. You're too bright, too full of potential. Your father would want you to finish." She looked at him with glistening eyes. "Thank you. You're the only one I can talk to about this." That sentence lodged in Joshua's mind like a hook. The only one. It made him feel chosen. Needed. From there, their conversations deepened. She began to share personal secrets. How her childhood was hard, how she sometimes felt invisible, how she dreamed of opening a small cafe one day. Joshua found himself revealing his own vulnerabilities in return. The loneliness after his divorce, his fear of growing old alone. It felt like mutual confession, like intimacy built on honesty. But friends, it was performance. Scammers know that when you bare your soul, you form a bond that feels unbreakable. Soon, she began introducing him, not to seedy friends, but to her family. An aunt who ran a small stall. A cousin who worked part-time in a shop. Smiling, ordinary people. Or so they seemed. The message was clear. She wasn't a stranger. She had roots, connections, people who respected her. Joshua was enchanted. This wasn't the stereotype of a bar girl chasing visas and wallets. This was a respectable young woman with family values, who saw him, not as an old man, but as a protector, a partner. And friends, that's the psychological genius of scams. They don't just steal your money. They rewrite your story. Joshua started to feel alive in ways he hadn't in decades. He bought new shirts. He caught himself humming in the mornings. His colleagues back home noticed his emails were lighter, more cheerful. He started imagining a future not of boardrooms and loneliness, but of sunsets in Phuket, running a cafe with Tontawan at his side. Of course, his son noticed. The tension at home grew sharp. One evening, after Joshua dropped Tontawan off, his son confronted him. "Dad, this is insane. She's half your age. She's my friend. And you don't know her like I do." Joshua snapped, anger flaring. "You think I don't see the age difference? You think I don't know what people will say? But she makes me feel alive. Do you understand that? Alive." His son shook his head, defeated. "She's not what you think. She's different when you're not around. Please, Dad, be careful." But Joshua was too deep. Every warning felt like jealousy, every doubt like an attempt to sabotage his second chance at love. And Tontawan only fanned the flame by whispering words like, "Don't let others ruin what we have. I feel safe with you, Joshua. You are not like other men." That phrase, "you are not like other men," was gasoline on the fire of his midlife longing. Little by little, trust hardened into dependency. She texted him in the mornings, "Have a good day, my Joshua." She called him at night, "I can't sleep without hearing your voice." And when she pressed her head against his shoulder on the balcony one evening, the city lights glowing below, Joshua thought, "This is it. This is love." What he didn't realize was that this intimacy wasn't real. It was staged, rehearsed, perfected. A script designed not to nurture love, but to set the stage for the first request. Because every scammer knows, before you ask for money, you must first convince your victim he is special. That he alone holds the key to your heart, your future, your dreams. Joshua was convinced. Completely. And that's when the requests began. Friends, every romance scam begins with one small step, a request so reasonable, so wrapped in sincerity, that saying no feels impossible. For Joshua, that moment came on a humid evening in Bangkok. He had just returned from a day of meetings about a potential logistics partnership. His mind was buzzing with numbers, contracts, possibilities. But when his phone buzzed and he saw Tontawan's name, all that stress melted. Her message was short, "Joshua, can I talk to you? It's important." He rushed to call. Her voice on the other end was soft, trembling. "I didn't want to tell you this, but my father is very sick. He needs medicine, and the hospital bill is higher than we expected. I feel so ashamed even mentioning it." Joshua's heart clenched. This wasn't a flashy demand. This wasn't gold-digger greed. It was a daughter worried about her father. What kind of man would refuse? He tried to reassure her. "Don't worry. How much is it? I can help." "No, no," she protested. It's not your responsibility. I'll figure it out. That hesitation, that feigned reluctance, was the hook. It made his decision feel noble, voluntary, proof of his love. In the end, it wasn't much. Just 12,000 baht, about $350. Pocket change compared to his savings. He wired the money the next morning. Her reaction was overwhelming. Tears over the phone. A flood of gratitude. You saved my family, Joshua. I don't know how I can ever repay you. You are my angel. And that was it, the switch flipped. Joshua didn't see it as a transaction. He saw it as love in action. Proof that he was not just a lover, but a protector, a man who could still make a difference. The next time they met, she held his hand tightly, her eyes shining. You are the only one I can trust. My life is better because of you. Friends, here's where psychology plays its cruelest trick. That first request isn't about the money, it's about cementing the role. Joshua wasn't just a man in her life now. He was her savior. And once a man accepts that role, he will keep fulfilling it, even when the requests grow larger, riskier, more absurd. Joshua didn't even tell his son about the transfer. He knew the boy would disapprove, accuse Tontawan of manipulation. But in Joshua's mind, this wasn't manipulation, it was intimacy. A secret bond between two people who trusted each other more than anyone else. The days after that payment, he walked differently. Straighter. He wasn't just a foreigner chasing youth. He was a man with purpose again. And Tontawan knew it. She began to call him my hero, slipping her arm through his at restaurants. She spoke openly about their future. One day, when I graduate, we could start something together. Maybe a cafe or a guest house. You and me. Those words painted vivid pictures in Joshua's head. Mornings together by the sea, afternoons serving coffee to tourists, evenings watching sunsets with the woman who had restored his heart. And all of it was anchored by that first payment. Small, almost forgettable, but monumental in what it unlocked. Because, friends, once the door to financial support is opened, it rarely closes. Joshua didn't know it yet, but this was just the beginning. The next requests wouldn't be so small. They would come wrapped in dreams, in promises of shared futures, in opportunities that seemed too good to miss. And each one would pull him deeper into the illusion, a web of love, obligation, and lies. The trap had been sprung. Scams rarely stay small. They grow. They evolve. They mirror your dreams until you can't tell where your vision ends and their manipulation begins. For Joshua, the shift came subtly. It started with casual conversations, dreams whispered in the quiet corners of cafes, or late-night calls where Tontawan's voice softened into intimacy. Joshua, she said one night, her head resting against his shoulder as they watched the Chao Phraya River glitter with city lights, I always dreamed of opening a small cafe. Not just for me, for my family. A place where tourists could taste real Thai flavors, and locals could feel at home. But dreams like that, they need money. Joshua smiled, picturing it instantly. He saw her behind the counter, hair tied back, serving steaming cups of coffee. He saw himself helping with logistics, managing suppliers, building something meaningful. After years of sterile office work, the idea of owning something warm, personal, tangible, it lit him up inside. She hesitated, biting her lip. I shouldn't even mention it. You've already done so much for me. I don't want you to think I am using you. Those words, using you, disarmed him. It made the idea feel safer, more genuine. Because scammers know that planting doubt and then denying it is the fastest way to build trust. Within weeks, they were talking details. Rent for a small shop near Chiang Mai. Equipment costs. Decorating with plants and warm wooden furniture. We don't need much to start, she said, sliding a notebook toward him filled with sketches and numbers. Just a little help, and then it will pay for itself. It will be ours. Ours. That word hit Joshua like a promise. This wasn't charity. This was partnership. Future. Proof that she saw him not just as a man with money, but as her teammate, her chosen partner in life and business. Of course, he knew foreign ownership laws in Thailand were tricky. A voice in the back of his head whispered, "You can't legally own property here. Everything has to be in her name." But Tontawan brushed it off with sweetness. "Don't worry, Joshua. We'll make it work. You trust me, right? And he did. More than he trusted his own son at this point. The money started flowing. First 200,000 baht, about $5,500, for the deposit on the cafe space. Then another 300,000 for renovations. Each time, Tontawan's gratitude was overwhelming. Hugs, tears, whispered promises of forever. But friends, here's the trap. Scammers rarely take directly. They make you believe you're investing. That you're building something that benefits you, too. Joshua wasn't giving her money. He was building a business. He was securing their future. Meanwhile, his son watched with growing alarm. Dad, can't you see what's happening? None of this makes sense. She's got you paying for things you can't even legally own. Joshua snapped again. Why can't you be happy for me? For us? You don't understand what it's like to be my age, to have another chance at love. And there it was, the division complete. Tontawan had isolated him from the only person who truly cared. Weeks later, she introduced new opportunities. A small plot of land her cousin wanted to sell. A chance to invest in a friend's organic farm. If we do this now, Joshua, we'll secure everything. You won't regret it. Every scammer knows that once you've crossed the line of one big payment, the next one feels easier. Joshua convinced himself this wasn't reckless, it was smart. He wasn't losing money. He was planting seeds for a new life, a new identity, a new happiness. But in reality, the seeds he was planting weren't for a farm, or a cafe, or a future. They were seeds of destruction, watering a dream that would never grow, feeding a lie that would eventually collapse under its own weight. And yet, Joshua couldn't stop. Because every time he looked into Tontawan's eyes, every time she whispered, "Our future," he believed. He needed to believe. Friends, that's the power of escalating scams. They don't steal outright. They let you build your own cage, bar by bar, payment by payment, until you're trapped in a prison of your own choices. And Joshua was already deep inside. The cafe. Never opened. The land. Never purchased. The investments. Nothing more than smoke. But by the time the cracks began to show, it was already too late. Scams rarely look like scams when you're living inside them. They look like love. They feel like commitment. And that's exactly how Tontawan tightened her grip. It began slowly. A nicer dress here. A new phone there. Little things Joshua bought for her, happy to spoil the woman who had reignited his spirit. After all, what was a few thousand baht when he believed he was investing in love? But soon, the gifts weren't just occasional, they became expectation. "Joshua," she said one evening as they strolled through Siam Paragon, Bangkok's luxury mall, "my classmates laugh at me because I still use an old laptop. It makes me look unprofessional. How can I succeed in business with such things?" Joshua hesitated, but only for a moment. By the end of the night, she walked out with a brand new MacBook, purchased on his credit card. She kissed his cheek, whispering, "You make me feel like I belong in your world." And that line, belonging, cut deep. Joshua wasn't just buying objects. He was buying validation. He was buying proof that he and Tontawan truly were building a life together. Soon, dinners shifted from street food stalls to fine dining restaurants overlooking the Chao Phraya River. Weekend getaways to Hua Hin and Phuket became routine. Tontawan's social media bloomed with photos, cocktails by infinity pools, designer handbags, beach selfies. Each caption tagged with hearts and promises of love. But here's the truth. She wasn't spending her own money. She was spending Joshua's savings, the nest egg he had worked decades to build, the cushion meant to secure his retirement. Friends, that's lifestyle inflation. When love becomes tied to luxury, when affection grows more expensive each month, you aren't building a relationship, you're financing an illusion. And Tontawan didn't stop there. She began speaking of marriage. Not in vague terms, but with conviction. "Joshua," she murmured one night, lying against him as cicadas sang outside her family's countryside home, "I want to spend my life with you. But my family, they won't accept us unless we prove our commitment. A small ceremony, just for tradition. Not official, but meaningful." Joshua's heart surged. After years of loneliness, Here was someone pledging herself to him. A second chance at love, wrapped in ritual. So he agreed. The ceremony was staged in her village. Garlands of jasmine, elders chanting blessings, neighbors watching curiously. Tontawan wore a silk dress, smiling with shy devotion. Joshua, dressed in white, felt reborn. It wasn't legally binding, but to him, it was sacred. He called it love. She called it strategy. Because from that point on, Joshua was no longer just a boyfriend. He was a husband in his mind. And husbands don't question. Husbands provide. The more his son warned him, the more Joshua withdrew. "You don't understand," he told his son, voice shaking with anger. "This isn't a fling. We are married now, in the eyes of her family. If you can't accept that, maybe you don't understand love at all." And that's how isolation works, friends. By convincing a victim to choose between their family and their partner, the scammer ensures loyalty flows one way. Joshua had chosen Tontawan. The spending escalated. Jewelry, to honor tradition. A car, to visit her sick father more easily. Renovations on a house, for their future. Every purchase framed as an investment in us. Joshua rationalized it all. He told himself he was building stability, creating comfort for the woman he loved. But deep down, a whisper of doubt nagged. Why was the cafe still unopened? Why did the land deal keep stalling? Why did every plan lead only to more expenses, more delays? Still, each time he questioned, Tontawan silenced him with affection. Tears, hugs, whispered fears of abandonment. "Please, Joshua, don't stop believing in us. You're the only one who understands me." And those words, "the only one who understands me," were his undoing. Because when you've built your identity around being someone's savior, the thought of walking away feels like death. So Joshua stayed. He paid. He loved. And he fell deeper into the lie. But soon, the cracks would begin to show. Every illusion eventually flickers. Even the brightest smile can't hide the shadows forever. For Joshua, the cracks began quietly, like faint lines on a porcelain vase, easy to ignore, until one day, the whole thing shatters. At first, it was small inconsistencies. One evening, he noticed that Tontawan's phone never left her hand. Even during dinners, she would tilt the screen away, typing quickly, then locking it when he glanced over. When he asked who she was chatting with, she smiled and said, "Just classmates, nothing important." But her laughter seemed sharper, more private. Another time, she told him she was visiting her aunt in Chiang Rai for the weekend. But when Joshua scrolled through social media, he saw a photo of her in Bangkok that same night, cocktail in hand, surrounded by friends he didn't recognize. He brushed it off. Maybe she changed her plans. Maybe she didn't want to bother him with details. Love, after all, is built on trust. And Joshua was desperate to trust. But the unease grew. Her tone shifted. Where once she had been gentle, grateful, affectionate, now she grew sharper. Requests sounded more like demands. "Joshua, the payment is late. The workers cannot continue." Or, "Joshua, if you truly love me, you won't hesitate." He noticed her patience thinning, her affection cooling whenever he hesitated to open his wallet. The cafe project, remember that dream she painted so vividly? Months had passed, yet the doors never opened. Each time Joshua asked, she gave excuses. The landlord delayed the paperwork. The supplier raised prices. "We need one more investment to finish." Always tomorrow. Never today. One night, unable to shake the doubts, Joshua drove past the location she had promised was under renovation. The shutters were closed. The windows dusty. No sign of construction. His stomach dropped. When he confronted her gently, she dissolved into tears. "You don't believe me? After everything? My family is ashamed. They say foreigners never trust us. I thought you were different." And just like that, guilt drowned suspicion. Joshua hated himself for doubting her. He apologized, reassured her, promised he would never question her again. But deep inside, a seed of fear was growing. Then came the whispers. An older expat he had met at a bar pulled him aside one night. "Mate, watch that girl. I've seen her with another guy, young Thai fellow, not far from here. Be careful. Joshua's face flushed with anger. You're mistaken. She loves me. The man shrugged. Maybe. Or maybe you're just the ATM. That word, ATM, echoed in Joshua's mind long after. Soon after, Joshua's son confronted him again. Dad, I've seen Tontawan around campus. She's not who you think she is. Please, wake up. Joshua shouted back, his voice breaking. Why can't you let me be happy? Why do you want to ruin this? But the truth was gnawing at him. Even as he defended her, his confidence wavered. The final straw came one evening when Joshua surprised Tontawan at her apartment. He had brought dinner, eager to rekindle their closeness. But when she opened the door, she looked startled, almost panicked. Behind her, Joshua caught a glimpse of men's shoes near the sofa. "Who's here?" he asked quietly. "No one," she said too quickly, blocking the doorway. "Just my cousin. You should have called first." He nodded, forcing a smile, but inside, his heart collapsed. From that moment, the illusion was cracked wide open. Friends, this is the cruelest stage of all. The moment when love feels like sand slipping through your fingers. When every smile looks suspicious, every absence feels like betrayal. But instead of leaving, victims often cling tighter, because admitting the truth means admitting you've been a fool. Joshua wasn't ready to face it. Not yet. So he stayed, hoping, denying, waiting for proof that she truly loved him. But proof would come. And it wouldn't heal, it would destroy. Fellow travelers, if you've ever loved deeply, you know that betrayal doesn't arrive as a loud crash. It begins as a whisper, a shadow in the corner, a feeling you try to ignore. For Joshua, the truth came like a storm he could no longer outrun. It started with a phone call he was never meant to hear. Joshua had left his jacket in Tontawan's apartment one evening. When he returned quietly to retrieve it, he heard her voice through the thin walls. Laughter, soft, intimate, followed by words in Thai. His stomach twisted as he listened. He couldn't understand every phrase, but one word stood out, repeated with affection, Tirak. Darling. But the voice she was speaking to wasn't his. The next day, Joshua confronted her, his hands trembling. Who were you talking to last night? She froze for a moment before composing herself. My cousin. You're being paranoid. But Joshua knew. He had heard the tone. That wasn't family. That was love. Her mask slipped for the first time. Instead of the soft, caring woman he thought he knew, she grew cold, sharp. Joshua, you're old. You don't understand how things work here. Don't embarrass yourself. The words cut deeper than any knife. Old. Embarrassing. A fool. Joshua staggered back, as though the room itself had betrayed him. After everything I've done for you, after all the money, the promises. She interrupted with a laugh, one that chilled him. Promises? You think this is forever? You were useful. You gave me what I needed. That's all. It was like the air had been sucked out of the room. Joshua's voice cracked. So I was just an ATM to you? She shrugged, eyes indifferent now. You foreigners never learn. You come here, desperate for love, thinking young women like me want you. Maybe some do. But most of us, we want security. Opportunity. You gave me that. Be grateful I stayed as long as I did. The humiliation was unbearable. He wanted to scream, to demand she give everything back. But what was there to demand? The money was gone. The investments were fake. The cafe was a lie. And the love that had resurrected his lonely heart, had never existed at all. That night, Joshua returned to his hotel room in Bangkok. The skyline glowed outside, the same view he once thought symbolized his new life. Now it mocked him. Every neon sign was a reminder of his foolishness, every honking taxi a jeer at his gullibility. He opened his bank account and stared at the numbers. Tens of thousands of dollars, his savings for retirement, the money meant to cushion his future, gone. Drained. He tried to call her, desperate for closure, but her number was blocked. He visited her apartment the next morning, empty. No trace of her. The neighbors shrugged. She moved out. Just like that, she vanished. Friends, that's the cruel rhythm of these scams. They end not with explanations, not with closure, but with disappearance. Like smoke, like shadows. The person you loved dissolves, leaving you questioning if they ever truly existed. Joshua broke down. He wept, not just for the money, but for the man he had become. A father estranged from his son. A respected professional reduced to a fool. A lonely man who mistook manipulation for love. And the worst part? He blamed himself. That's the poison of betrayal. It doesn't just rob you of wealth. It robs you of dignity, of trust in your own judgment. You replay every smile, every touch, every "I love you," wondering how you could have believed. Joshua's paradise had collapsed into hell. His dream of love in Thailand was nothing more than a cruel performance, scripted to drain him of everything he held dear. And as he sat in that dark hotel room, staring at his empty account, one truth echoed louder than the city outside. Thailand's beauty hides dangerous traps. What he thought was a second chance at love was nothing more than a fake love that destroyed his life. Betrayal doesn't end when the scammer disappears. It lingers. It festers. It follows you into every quiet moment, every empty room. For Joshua, the aftermath was almost harder than the betrayal itself. The financial damage was staggering. Tens of thousands gone. His savings, his safety net, his plans for retirement, all drained into false investments, lavish dinners, and promises that never existed. Every time he checked his balance, he felt a fresh wave of nausea. But money, as painful as it was, wasn't the deepest wound. The emotional trauma cut far deeper. Joshua found himself spiraling into shame. He replayed every moment, every word. How could I have believed her? How did I not see the signs? Sleep became impossible. Nights were haunted by memories of Tontawan's smile, her voice calling him "my hero," the fake wedding ceremony where he truly believed she was his wife. He woke in sweats, torn between longing and rage. His relationship with his son was fractured. When the truth came out, his son's voice was filled with both anger and sorrow. "Dad, I warned you. I begged you to see it." Joshua wanted to defend himself, to say he was blinded by love. But the shame was too heavy. Instead, he avoided his son's calls, too humiliated to face the one person who had seen the truth all along. He tried to report the scam to local authorities, but friends, if you know Thailand, you know how this goes. Police shrugged, asked for proof. Without contracts, without official receipts, what could he show? Just transfers, messages, and photos of smiles. To them, it looked like a relationship gone sour, not a crime. So Joshua carried the burden alone. He sank into depression. Meals went untouched. Days blurred together. He wandered Bangkok's streets in a daze, watching tourists laugh, couples holding hands, bar girls luring men with neon promises. Everywhere he looked, he saw echoes of Tontawan. But time, as cruel as it is, also heals in fragments. A few older expats, men who had been through similar nightmares, reached out. Over beers, they shared their own scars, wives who vanished, girlfriends who drained accounts, promises that crumbled. For the first time, Joshua realized he wasn't alone. That truth was both comforting and devastating. Comforting because he wasn't uniquely foolish. Devastating because it proved how common, how systematic, these scams truly were. Slowly, he began to rebuild. He moved into a cheaper apartment, cut back on luxuries, and forced himself into routines. Morning walks, small freelance projects, phone calls to his son, even when the silence was heavy. Healing wasn't linear. Some days, he felt strong. Other days, he nearly called Tontawan, forgetting she had blocked him long ago. But step by step, the fog lifted. Joshua came to understand that what had been stolen wasn't just money. It was trust. Trust in love, trust in others, trust in himself. That kind of loss doesn't show on a bank statement. It shows in the way you hesitate before letting anyone close again. And yet, sharing his story became his path to recovery. By telling the truth, his shame, his mistakes, his heartbreak, he found power in warning others. Because, friends, as Joshua learned the hard way, paradise can turn into hell when you mistake manipulation for love. And though his heart still carries scars, his voice carries something else: warning, hard-earned wisdom, and a plea to every man who dreams of finding love in Thailand. Be careful. Be smarter than I was. Fellow travelers, Joshua's story isn't just about one man's heartbreak. It's a mirror, a reflection of what can happen to anyone who comes to Thailand with hope in their heart and blinders over their eyes. Because the truth is this: scams don't just steal your money. They steal your dignity. They steal your trust. They leave scars you carry long after the money is gone. So let's be clear. Here are the red flags Joshua ignored, red flags you cannot afford to miss. Too perfect, too soon. Love that blossoms overnight, affection that feels larger than life, it isn't natural. Real love grows slowly. Fake love rushes. Family emergencies. The sick father, the struggling cousin, the sudden medical bill. These are common scripts. Compassion becomes the lever to pry open your wallet. Promises of partnership. Business ventures, land deals, cafes, ghost houses. If it all has to be in her name, it's not partnership. It's control. Isolation. When your loved ones question the relationship and you feel pushed to choose, that's not love, it's manipulation. Lifestyle inflation. If affection grows only when you spend and shrinks when you hesitate, you're not in a relationship, you're in a transaction. Friends, scammers succeed not because men are stupid, but because men are human. Because loneliness is powerful. Because the dream of being loved, of being wanted, can make you ignore what's right in front of you. Joshua's paradise ended in hell. His romance was nothing more than a scam that drained his savings and scarred his heart. But his story isn't wasted if it saves even one of you listening right now. So take this lesson with you. Thailand is beautiful. Its beaches glow at sunset, its temples shine with gold, its people smile with warmth. But beauty without caution is a trap. And behind the sweetest smiles, there can be knives waiting to cut you deep. If you're dreaming of love abroad, don't let Joshua's mistake become your story. Ask hard questions. Trust slowly. Listen when family warns you. And above all, remember, real love doesn't cost your future. Friends, if Joshua's story struck a chord with you, don't let it end here. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. It might just save them from a nightmare. Hit like, subscribe, and stay tuned, because more real stories like this are coming. Stories that may one day save your heart, your wallet, and your dignity. Because sometimes the best gift isn't encouragement. It's a reality check.